Welcome to VPOD.AI SAT Mastery. I'm your host, Mike, and sitting across from me today is our resident testing expert, Susan.
Hey everyone, it is great to be here.
Today's deep dive is all about the digital SAT explained format, timing, and scoring. And, we really want to demystify this for you.
We do, because preparing for the SAT can be incredibly nerve-wracking, especially with the format completely changing on us.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, for decades, there was this very specific, almost universal sensory experience associated with taking the SAT.
Oh, I know exactly what you're going to say.
Right. You wake up way too early on a Saturday. You sit in this freezing cold high school gymnasium.
With the worst fluorescent lighting.
Yes. You have a handful of wooden number 2 pencils, and you spend 3 grueling hours just listening to the scratch of graphite on paper.
And that terrifyingly loud tick of the clock on the wall.
Exactly. It was practically an endurance sport.
It really was. The fatigue was, honestly, as much of an obstacle as the algebra. You weren't just proving what you knew. You were proving you could stay awake and focused while staring at a massive, intimidating booklet.
But if you are a student gearing up to take the SAT today, that 3-hour graphite-smudged marathon is it's dead.
Completely gone.
Right, so we have the College Board's official digital SAT suite specifications in front of us, and our mission today is to decode exactly how this new 2-hour, 14-minute adaptive software actually works.
And that right there is the headline. Getting that time down by nearly an hour is huge.
It's a massive drop.
It really is. So the entire assessment has shifted to a custom digital application. You can run it on your own laptop or tablet, or you can even request to borrow a device directly from the College Board well before test day.
Which is pretty convenient.
Yeah.
And because these devices take the mechanical friction out of the test, like, graphing by hand, bubbling in Scantrons, or constantly slipping pages back and forth to reread a passage, the College Board realized they didn't actually need 3 hours to measure a student's intelligence.
Right. The digital interface provides all these built-in tools now. There's a built-in graphing calculator, digital annotation features, and this is a big one for anxiety, a timer you can actually hide.
Oh, wow, that is a nice touch.
Yeah, and those interface upgrades are exactly what allowed them to slash the testing time down to just over 2 hours.
But here's where it gets really interesting, because I'm looking at this extra time per question and thinking, great, the test is just easier now.
That is the natural assumption, yeah.
Well, right. But colleges wouldn't accept a test that simply lowered the bar across the board. Does giving students more time per question actually make the test easier? Or is it just fundamentally different?
It's fundamentally different. I mean, they wouldn't just dilute the content. The traditional rigor of the math and reading concepts, that remains fully intact.
Okay, so how does it work then?
Well, it goes back to a concept in assessment design called construct validity.
Construct validity?
Yeah. Essentially is a test actually measuring the specific thing it claims to measure. For a long time, the paper SAT inadvertently measured a student's test-taking speed and their stamina alongside their academic skills.
Ah, I see. So rushing through dense text just to finish on time doesn't necessarily prove you're ready for college-level analysis.
Exactly. It often just proves an ability to skim under extreme pressure.
I also.
So by removing the artificial barrier of the ticking clock, the test isolates the actual variables it wants to measure, your quantitative reasoning and your literacy.
So it's measuring skill, not speed.
Yes. It allows your true academic abilities to surface without the confounding variable of a time crunch.
That makes total sense.
Yeah.
And that desire to remove confounding variables seems to be like the driving force behind how they restructured the entire test.
It really is.
Let's actually look at the breakdown. Gone are the days of jumping between 4 or 5 different test sections. Now, there are only 2 main sections, reading and writing, followed by math, and they are separated by a 10-minute break.
So much more manageable. Let's analyze that reading and writing section first.
Okay, lay it on me.
You have 64 minutes to answer 54 questions. Now, in the paper version, reading comprehension and writing mechanics were administered as completely separate tests.
Right, I remember that.
But now, they are seamlessly combined. The rationale here is that literacy is fluid. The cognitive skills required to comprehend a complex text are inextricably linked to the skills required to edit or structure one.
That format is a massive departure from the old model. I mean, the paper test used to give you these exhausting 80-line passages about something incredibly dry.
Oh, the worst.
Right. And then they'd ask you 10 or 11 questions about that single text. If you didn't understand the core premise of the passage, you were basically sinking for the next 15 minutes.
You were trapped, yeah.
But the digital SAT abandons that completely. Now, you get many short passages, and there's only one single question tied to each text.
What's fascinating here is how that shift completely alters the cognitive load placed on the student.
How so?
Well, when you are forced to hold the context of an 80-line passage in your working memory while simultaneously navigating multiple complex questions, your brain is doing double duty.
Right. It's exhausting.
It is. The one question per passage model eliminates that working memory tax.
I look at this new reading and writing section like a rapid-fire tasting menu.
Ooh, I like that analogy.
Yeah. Instead of forcing you to eat one giant heavy steak that makes you want to take a nap, you are getting these small, distinct bites. A tiny paragraph about biology, answer one question.
Right.
Short poem, answer one question. A quick historical excerpt, answer one question. It keeps the brain actively engaged.
And it prevents that mid-test glaze over. Plus, from an assessment standpoint, that tasting menu approach allows the College Board to test a much wider, more representative variety of topics.
Because they aren't committing an entire page to just one subject.
Exactly. You are encountering the diverse array of reading materials you will actually see in a college environment.
But they don't just throw these at you randomly, right?
No, they don't. Because the texts are shorter, the designers wanted to avoid constant jarring context switching, so all the questions testing similar skills are grouped together.
Oh, that's smart. So you get a few early wins in a specific skill set before the difficulty ramps up, rather than getting blindsided by the hardest question on page 1.
Precisely. It creates a much smoother runway for you to demonstrate your capability within each specific domain before shifting gears to the next set of skills.
That reduction in cognitive load actually mirrors the philosophy behind the changes to the math section, too.
It really does.
So after your 10-minute break, you sit down for math. You get 70 minutes to answer 44 questions. But the most immediate change, and I know students will love this, is that calculators are now allowed for the entire math section.
Yes. The anxiety of the no calculator section is completely gone.
Which is huge.
It is, and this change was made to reflect how mathematics is actually practiced in modern high school classrooms and, in the professional world. We use computational tools to solve complex problems.
Right. Nobody is doing long division by hand in a corporate boardroom.
Exactly. The assessment now mirrors that reality, focusing on whether you understand how to set up the problem and interpret the data.
The other structural change in the math section has to do with the length of the word problems. I know so many students who are brilliant at math, but struggled with the old SAT because the word problems were essentially reading comprehension tests disguised as algebra.
That was a huge problem, and the College Board's data scientists analyzed that exact issue. They found that excessively long, highly complex contexts in math problems were acting as a barrier.
So they shortened them.
Significantly, they reduced the average length of in-context questions.
Which brings us back to that idea of construct validity. If a math test is heavily reliant on reading speed, it's a flawed math test.
It creates a severe disadvantage, particularly for English language learners. If a student is still mastering the nuances of English syntax, they shouldn't be penalized on a quantitative assessment just because a question took an entire paragraph to explain a hypothetical scenario about, like, buying watermelons on a train.
Right.
Shorter math contexts ensure the test is strictly measuring quantitative skills.
Okay, let's unpack this next part because this is the million-dollar question. We've established that the test is shorter, the passages are bite-sized, the math problems are concise, and there are only 2 sections.
Right.
But this is where the math of the test itself gets complicated. How can the College Board cut 45 minutes off the total test time and still accurately measure a student's ability? I mean, it feels intuitive that fewer questions would mean a less reliable score.
That intuition makes sense based on traditional testing models, sure, but the digital SAT abandons the traditional model entirely.
Okay.
The secret behind the time savings is a technology called multi-stage adaptive testing, or MST.
Multi-stage adaptive testing. Let's really break this down because this is the absolute core of how the new SAT functions.
It is the engine running the whole thing.
So each of the 2 main sections is divided into 2 equal-length modules. For reading and writing, you have 2 32-minute modules. For math, you have 2 35-minute modules. How does the adaptive mechanism actually operate during those modules?
It operates by routing you through the test based on your real-time performance. Let's trace the path of a hypothetical student, okay?
Let's do it.
When the timer starts for the reading and writing section, every single student begins with Module 1. This first module contains a very deliberate, broad mix of easy, medium, and hard questions.
So the software is essentially establishing a baseline measurement of your knowledge.
Exact.
You finish Module 1, the timer runs out, and then what happens?
The application instantly calculates your performance on that first set of questions. Depending on your accuracy and the specific difficulty of the questions you answered correctly, the algorithm adapts.
It adapts.
Right. It automatically routes you to a Module 2 that is specifically tailored to your performance level.
Meaning, if you performed highly in Module 1, the app routes you to a generally harder Module 2.
Yeah.
And if you struggled, it routes you to a slightly easier Module 2.
Yes, and this routing is what makes the shorter test possible. In a traditional linear paper test, everyone answers the exact same 100 questions.
Right.
That means an advanced student wastes time answering 30 questions that are far too easy for them, and a struggling student spends 30 minutes guessing on questions that are mathematically out of their current reach.
Which is just statistically wasted time.
Exactly. Adaptive testing zeroes in on a student's true skill level without forcing them to answer dozens of questions that provide no new data to the scoring algorithm.
Wait, hold on. If I get nervous, misread a few questions, and mess up the first 30 minutes of the test, I get routed to an easier module.
You would, yes.
That feels incredibly unfair. Doesn't the algorithm punishing me with a lower second module seal my fate before I've even warmed up?
I completely hear you, and it is a very common concern. But if we connect this to the bigger picture, we need to look at the science behind the algorithm. Adaptive testing is not a new or experimental concept.
Really?
Oh, no. Psychometricians, the data scientists who specialize in educational measurement, have been using and refining this methodology for large-scale assessments for decades.
So the math backing this up is already well established.
Very well established. The underlying framework is often based on item response theory, or IRT.
Item response theory. Okay.
Right. In a standard test, every question is worth 1 point, regardless of how hard it is. But under item response theory, the algorithm evaluates multiple parameters for every single question.
Like what?
It looks at the difficulty level, how likely a student of a certain ability is to get it right. It also looks at discrimination, how well the question differentiates between a high-performing student and a low-performing one.
So routing a student to a lower difficulty second module isn't penalizing them for a slow start.
Not at all. It is giving them the optimal environment to demonstrate exactly what they do know.
Okay, I think I see what you're saying.
Yeah, think about it. If you route a struggling student to a module full of highly complex algebra they haven't mastered, they will just guess randomly. Random guessing introduces statistical noise, which ruins the reliability of the test.
So by routing them to a module matched to their current ability, the algorithm gathers highly precise data about their actual proficiency level.
Exactly. It creates a personalized assessment that is less frustrating for the student, but mathematically just as reliable as a 3-hour linear test.
The old paper test used a blunt instrument to measure everyone at once, and this digital test uses like a scalpel to find your specific knowledge boundary.
That is a perfect way to put it. And because it is a multi-stage adaptive test, meaning it adapts only once between modules, rather than adapting after every single question, you retain the ability to navigate freely within each module.
That's good to know.
Yeah. You can skip a hard question in Module 1, answer the easy ones to secure those points, and then go back to the hard one before the module time expires. You remain in complete control of your pacing strategies.
That makes the actual experience less jarring, definitely. But it brings up a massive logistical hurdle for me.
Okay, what's that?
So what does this all mean for scoring? If you and I sit next to each other at a testing center and you get routed to the harder Module 2, and I get routed to the easier Module 2, we are taking fundamentally different tests.
Yes, you are.
We are answering entirely different sets of questions. How in the world do they score this fairly? How do colleges compare those scores?
The mechanism that makes this possible is called equating, specifically utilizing a vertical score scale. And it's important to know the scoring scale itself is staying exactly the same.
Oh, it is?
Yes. It remains the classic SAT scale 200 to 800 points per section, combining for a total possible score of 1,600.
Okay, but getting a perfect score on the easier Module 2 doesn't magically give you an 800, right? Because the algorithm factors in the difficulty of the path you took.
Right. Think of it like a high jump competition.
Okay.
If you clear the bar at 5 feet in Module 1, the test raises the bar to 6 feet in Module 2. If you clear that, your score reflects that higher difficulty level.
Makes sense.
But if someone else knocks down the bar at 5 feet in Module 1, the algorithm might lower the bar to 4 feet in Module 2. Even if they flawlessly clear every single 4-foot jump in their second module, their final numerical score will mathematically reflect that they were jumping at a lower height than you were.
The adaptive nature of the test is already baked into the final number. The system equates the statistical difficulty of the specific questions you faced to place you precisely on that universal 200 to 800 scale.
Exactly. It is highly complex on the back end, processing all those item response theory parameters. But for the student, the output is beautifully simple.
Meaning, your dream score of a 1500 still means exactly what it used to mean to a college admissions officer.
Yeah.
The path to get there is just much more high-tech.
Yes, the destination is identical. And there is also a major logistical benefit to this high-tech tool.
Faster scores.
Faster scores. Because the test is entirely digital and the scoring is automated by the algorithm, the agonizing weeks-long wait for score reports is a thing of the past. Students receive their scores in a matter of days.
Wow. Waiting weeks for that notification used to cause so much unnecessary stress.
It really did.
Getting results back in days allows a student to pivot immediately if they decide they want to adjust their study strategy and retake the test.
It compresses the entire planning timeline for college applications. Everything about this redesign feels engineered to be more respectful of the student's time and psychological energy.
It really does. But there's one more byproduct of this digital shift that completely alters the reality of test day. And I know it's something we have to touch on. Test security.
Oh, absolutely. In the era of the paper SAT, test security was a constant vulnerability. Test booklets had to be printed, shipped, stored, and distributed.
Logistical nightmare.
Completely. If a single booklet was compromised, say someone accessed a copy in an earlier time zone and posted the contents online, the integrity of the entire test administration was shattered.
And the College Board would have to cancel scores for entire groups of innocent students just because one paper form was leaked.
Which is heartbreaking. But moving to a digital, multi-stage adaptive model effectively eliminates that vulnerability.
Because there's no paper to steal.
Right. The testing application dynamically pulls from a massive, secure cloud bank of questions to assemble your specific modules in real time. This means practically every single student in a testing room receives a highly comparable but mathematically unique test form.
So if you were sitting in a testing center and decide to glance over at the screen of the student sitting next to you, it is entirely useless.
Completely useless. They are seeing different questions, presented in a different order, and potentially operating in a totally different module difficulty level.
Cheating by looking at the desk next to you is now completely obsolete.
Exactly. The shift to digital makes the assessment infinitely more secure, which ultimately protects the integrity and value of the score you worked so hard to achieve.
Well, if you have an SAT date circling on your calendar, this deep dive should hopefully reframe how you view the upcoming test. It is no longer an endurance run designed to test your ability to stare at paper for 3 hours.
It really isn't. It's a shorter, highly personalized assessment that gives you more time to think, equips you with the tools you need right on your screen, and actively adapts to showcase your specific strengths.
So as you prepare for this new digital landscape, consider this final thought. If adaptive algorithms can accurately pinpoint a student's exact math and reading level in just over 2 hours, how long until our entire high school curriculum is assessed this way?
Oh, that is a fascinating question.
Right. The digital SAT might just be the canary in the coal mine for the end of the traditional standardized final exam across all subjects. We're witnessing a fundamental shift in how we measure human potential.
It is a profound shift for sure, and understanding the mechanics behind it is the first step to mastering it.
Absolutely. Well, next time, we are going to dive even deeper into the algorithm. Join us next time when we dive into our next topic, how the adaptive SAT really works. Until then, keep analyzing, keep questioning, and let the software do the adapting.